The rain hammered against my office window with a violence that matched the spreadsheets glaring back at me from the monitor. Quarter-end reports always brought their own kind of storm, but tonight felt different. The Denver skyline disappeared behind sheets of water, the city lights bleeding into abstract smears of color. I pushed back from my desk, rubbing eyes that had been staring at numbers for the past 12 hours. My name is Jacob Reed. I'm 36 years old, and I work as a senior accountant for one of those firms whose name you'd recognize, but whose actual purpose remains mysteriously vague even to those of us who work there. It's the kind of job that pays for a downtown loft and a car that starts every morning, but leaves you wondering what exactly you're accounting for in the grand scheme of things. Souls, maybe. Dreams, certainly. The office was empty except for the overnight security guard and the cleaning crew. Even the most ambitious associates had fled by 9, driven away by the weather warnings that had been escalating all day. But I stayed, not out of dedication to the corporate machine, but because an empty office felt less hollow than an empty apartment. My phone buzzed on the desk, the screen lighting up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, another spam call about my car's extended warranty probably, but something made me answer. Jacob. The voice was barely audible over what sounded like wind and rain. Yes? Who is this? It's me. It's Sarah. My sister. My sister who I hadn't heard from in 3 months. Not since our parents had made their position on her divorce crystal clear. My sister whose voice now carried a kind of desperation that made my stomach clench. Sarah? Where are you? I can barely hear you. We're at a gas station. Off Highway 76. The twins, Jacob, they threw us out. Mom and Dad, they actually threw us out. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward into the wall. What do you mean they threw you out? They said divorced women bring shame to the family. That I made my choice when I left Marcus. They packed our things, put them on the lawn, and locked the door. In this storm, Jacob, with the babies, they locked us out in this storm. Through the phone, I could hear the high, thin wail of an infant. No, 2 infants. The twins. Emma and Ella, 5 months old, probably cold and definitely scared. The sound cut through me like shrapnel. Which gas station? I was already grabbing my keys, my coat, my laptop bag out of pure habit. Sarah. Which gas station exactly? The Conoco near mile marker 47. But Jacob, the storm. I'm coming. Stay inside. Keep the babies warm. I'm coming. I hung up before she could protest, before the rational part of my brain could calculate the danger of driving 3 hours through what the weather service was calling the worst storm of the decade. Some calculations didn't matter when family was involved. Real family, anyway. The parking garage elevator seemed to take forever, each floor counting down like a judgment. P5, P4, P3, each number a reminder of how far I'd climbed in the corporate world and how little it mattered when your sister was huddled in a gas station with infant twins, cast out like some biblical cautionary tale. My car, a sensible Accord that my father had approved of, started immediately, the engine purring with well-maintained reliability. I'd bought it partly to please him, another line item in the endless ledger of seeking parental approval. Now I was about to drive it through a tempest to rescue the daughter he'd disowned. The irony wasn't lost on me as I pulled out into the storm. The highway was a river of hazard lights and hydroplaning semis. Visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet, the rain coming down so hard my wipers couldn't keep up. Every mile was a negotiation with physics, every curve a trust fall with fate. But I kept going, driven by the sound of my sister's voice and the wail of those babies. To understand why my parents would throw their own daughter into a storm, you have to understand the Reed family doctrine. It's not written down anywhere. That would be too forthright for people who communicate primarily through disapproving silences and pointed remarks. But it exists, carved into every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every milestone that came with specific expectations attached. The doctrine was simple: Reeds don't fail. Reeds don't divorce. Reeds don't embarrass the family. Reeds maintain appearances at all costs, even if the cost is their own children. I learned this early, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting at the dining room table while my mother explained why we wouldn't be seeing Aunt Catherine anymore. She made her choices, my mother had said, cutting her pot roast with surgical precision. And choices have consequences. But she's your sister, I'd protested, too young to understand that blood relations meant nothing compared to reputation. She was my sister, my mother corrected. Now she's just someone who used to be. Aunt Catherine's crime? Leaving an abusive husband, filing for divorce, refusing to stick it out for the sake of appearances. She'd been erased from family photos, her name becoming a profanity in the Reed household. I'd snuck over to see her once when I was 15. Found her living in a small apartment, happy and free and very much alive despite being declared dead to the family. "They'll do it to you too, if you don't toe the line," she'd warned me. The Reed family loves their reputation more than their children. I thought she was being dramatic. Families didn't really disown their own over something as common as divorce. This was the 21st century, not some Victorian novel. But then Sarah met Marcus. Marcus Chun was everything my parents wanted in a son-in-law. Doctor, stable, from a good family. Their code for wealthy and willing to play the same social games they did. When Sarah married him at 25, my parents acted like they'd won the lottery. Finally, one of their children had done something right. I was the other child, the one who'd done things adequately but not exceptionally. Good job but not great. Nice apartment but not in the right neighborhood. Successful but not married, which in the Reed family accounting meant I was running a deficit no matter how many zeros were in my bank account. Sarah had achieved the dream. The wedding was perfect, featured in local society pages. The house was perfect, in the right suburb with the right school district for future perfect children. The marriage looked perfect from the outside, which was all that mattered. The twins came 2 years later, and if Sarah's marriage had made my parents happy, grandchildren sent them into raptures. Finally, proof that the Reed line would continue, that their legacy of appearance maintenance would pass to another generation. They bought matching everything: cribs, clothes, car seats. All top of the line, all visible symbols of their investment in perfection. But perfect is a brittle thing. It shatters under pressure, and Marcus Chen, for all his sterling credentials, had a temper that he kept hidden like a snake in designer clothing. The first time Sarah showed up at my apartment with a bruise on her arm, she laughed it off. You know me, clumsy Sarah. Walked right into the door frame. The second time, she had an elaborate story about falling down the stairs. The third time, she didn't bother with excuses. She just sat on my couch and cried while I made tea and tried not to let my rage show. Rage at Marcus, yes, but also at myself for not seeing it sooner, for believing the performance they'd all been putting on. You have to leave him, I'd said. I can't, she'd whispered. Mom and Dad don't have to live with him. You do. You don't understand. They've invested so much in this. The wedding, the house, their reputation. If you leave, you'll be alive to raise your daughters. That's all that matters. Took 6 more months. 6 months of careful planning, of documenting injuries, of meeting with lawyers in secret like some kind of resistance fighter in occupied territory. When she finally filed for divorce, she did it with an airtight case. Marcus couldn't contest it, couldn't charm his way out of the police reports and medical records and photographs. But he didn't have to. My parents did it for him. You're overreacting, my mother had said when Sarah told them. All marriages have rough patches. He hit me, Sarah had said, the words hanging in the air like an accusation. You must have provoked him, my father had replied, and in that moment, I saw my sister break a little more. They tried everything. Counseling, but only with their approved therapist who suggested Sarah try being more submissive. Meditation, to help her manage her unrealistic expectations. Even a weekend retreat for troubled couples. As if a spa day could cure a man of his violence. When Sarah held firm, when the divorce was finalized, they shifted tactics. Silent treatment, withdrawal of financial support, subtle threats about grandparent rights. They played every card in their deck except the one that mattered. Unconditional love. I tried to mediate to make them see reason. But you can't reason with people who value reputation over reality. Who'd rather have a battered daughter in a respectable marriage than a divorced one who's safe. The storm got worse as I drove east, away from the city and into the plains where the wind had nothing to stop it. My phone rang constantly, Sarah checking my progress, work wondering why I'd left without logging out properly. My parents' number that I let go to voicemail every time. Radio stations interrupted their programming with emergency broadcasts, telling people to seek shelter, to stay off the roads, to wait for the storm to pass. But some storms don't pass. Some storms follow you, generated by the very people who were supposed to shelter you from harm. And sometimes the only thing you can do is drive straight through them and hope you come out the other side. Mile marker 30. The Accord struggled against the wind, getting pushed into the shoulder by gusts that seemed determined to flip it over. I passed abandoned cars, hazard lights blinking like distress signals in the dark. Each one made me wonder if I should stop, if I should help, but Sarah's voice echoed in my head. They locked us out in this storm. Mile marker 35. The rain turned to hail, percussion on the roof like angry fists. I thought about Emma and Ella, probably screaming by now, too young to understand why their world had suddenly become so cold and hostile. 5 months old. They'd been born into what looked like privilege but was actually a prison, and now they were refugees from their own family. Mile marker 40. My phone rang again. This time, I recognized the number as my mother's landline. Against my better judgment, I answered, putting it on speaker. Jacob? Where are you? Your father said you left work early. I'm driving. In this weather? Don't be foolish. Come home. We'll have dinner. I'm going to get Sarah. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, in a voice like winter, there is no Sarah. She's your daughter. I have no daughter. I have a son who's apparently determined to throw away everything we've built for him. Built for me? Or for yourselves? Don't be dramatic, Jacob. You know how these things work. She made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. The consequence of leaving an abusive marriage shouldn't be losing your family. Marriage is sacred. She took vows. So did you. I shot back. To love and protect your children. Guess we're all oathbreakers now. I hung up before she could respond, before her voice could worm its way into my resolve. The exit for mile marker 47 appeared through the rain like a promise, and I took it too fast, feeling the car slide before the tires found purchase again. The Conoco station was a fluorescent oasis in the storm. I could see Sarah's car, the sensible SUV my parents had bought her for the twins, parked near the door. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of her inside, holding both babies, looking small and lost and younger than her 29 years. I parked and ran, the rain soaking through my coat instantly. The bell above the door announced my arrival with incongruous cheer. Jacob! Sarah stood, juggling both twins, and I could see she'd been crying. The babies were wrapped in her coat, their faces red from crying, but they were safe. They were okay. Hey! I said, trying to sound casual. like driving through hell was just another Thursday night. Need a lift? She laughed or maybe sobbed, it was hard to tell. I took Emma, or was it Ella? From her arms, the baby's weight strange and precious. She was so small, so vulnerable, depending entirely on adults to keep her safe. Adults who had spectacularly failed her so far. We need to get their things, Sarah said. The car seats, the diaper bags. We'll transfer everything. But first, let's get them warm. The gas station attendant, a kid who couldn't have been more than 19, watched us with wide eyes. Y'all okay? That storm's getting worse. They're saying tornadoes possible. We're fine, I lied. Just need to move some car seats. It took 3 trips to transfer everything. Each journey into the rain a reminder of what my parents had done. They'd packed Sarah's things, hastily, carelessly, some of the baby's clothes already soaked through. They'd literally put their daughter and granddaughter's possessions on the lawn like garbage and locked the door. Once everything was moved, Sarah secured the twins in my back seat while I programmed my GPS for home. Not my parents' home, that had never really been home anyway. My apartment, which was about to become much more crowded. Jacob, Sarah said as I started the engine. I don't know how to thank you. You don't thank family for doing the minimum, I said. You ready? She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Not fear of the storm, we'd already survived worse than weather. Fear of what came next, of building a life from the ruins of everything she'd known. Actually, she said suddenly, I need to stop at the apartment, mine and Marcus's old place. I left some things there, important things. Sarah, the storm. Please, it's on the way. Sort of. I have a key, and Marcus is in California at a medical conference. It'll just take a minute. I should have said no. Should have insisted we go straight to safety. But Sarah had lost so much already. Her marriage, her parents, her home. If there was something at that apartment she needed, some piece of her old life worth salvaging, who was I to deny her? Okay, I said, but we're in and out. Quick. The apartment complex was in Cherry Heights, one of those suburban developments that promises luxury living, but delivers beige walls and thin floors. I'd been there exactly twice, once to help them move in, once for a dinner party where Marcus had spent the entire evening making subtle digs at Sarah's cooking while everyone pretended not to notice. Now, approaching it through the storm, the place looked abandoned. The parking lot was flooded, water up to the hubcaps of the few cars remaining. Most residents had evidently had the sense to evacuate or hunker down elsewhere. Maybe we should skip this, I said. But Sarah was already unbuckling her seatbelt. 5 minutes. Promise. The twins will be fine with you. They were sleeping now, exhausted from crying, tiny faces peaceful despite the chaos around them. Yeah, but Sarah. 5 minutes. She was out of the car before I could stop her, running through the rain to the building entrance. I watched her punch in the code, disappear inside. The twins stirred but didn't wake, and I found myself studying their faces in the rearview mirror. They had Sarah's nose, Marcus's eyes, little combinations of DNA that would grow up carrying the weight of this night whether they remembered it or not. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I texted Sarah, "Everything okay?" No response. At 15 minutes, I made a decision. I couldn't leave the twins, but I couldn't leave Sarah either. Carefully, I unbuckled their car seats and somehow managed to carry both into the building's lobby. It was dry inside, warm, and I could set them down safely while I figured out what to do next. The elevator was out of service, of course it was. Sarah's apartment was on the 4th floor. I looked at the twins, at the stairs, at my phone showing no new messages. "Okay, girls," I said to the sleeping babies. "Uncle Jacob's about to get a workout." Carrying 2 infant car seats up 4 flights of stairs in wet dress shoes was exactly as difficult as it sounds. By the 2nd floor, my arms were screaming. By the 3rd, I was questioning every life choice that had led to this moment. But I made it, setting the twins down carefully in the hallway before knocking on 4B. No answer. "Sarah?" I called through the door. "You okay?" Nothing. The door was unlocked, which should have been my first warning. Sarah was many things, but careless about security wasn't one of them. Especially not after Marcus. I pushed the door open and stepped into darkness. Sarah? The apartment smelled wrong. Not like the lemon cleaner Sarah always used, or the expensive cologne Marcus favored. It smelled like fear and copper and something else. Something that made my primitive brain scream warnings. I found the light switch. The living room was destroyed. Not ransacked, destroyed. Furniture overturned. Pictures smashed. Walls bearing the scars of violence. And there, in the center of it all, was Sarah. She was standing perfectly still, staring at something on the coffee table. As I got closer, I could see what had transfixed her. A knife. Not a kitchen knife, but something bigger, meaner. The kind of knife that had only one purpose. "Sarah," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. "We need to go." "He was here," she said, her voice distant. "Recently. I can smell his aftershave. All the more reason to leave. Now. He left this for me." She gestured to the knife. "With a note." I didn't want to read the note. Didn't want to know what kind of message a man leaves with a weapon for the wife who dared to leave him. But Sarah handed it to me anyway, and I read Marcus's neat doctor's handwriting. "You took everything from me. My reputation, my career, my future. Did you think I'd let you keep the twins? Did you think your family would protect you? I know where you are. I know they threw you out. Storms coming, Sarah. And not just the weather." My hands shook as I set the note down. "We're calling the police. Now." "With what proof?" "He's in California, remember? Has been for 3 days. Airtight alibi. This could have been left any time. The threat is vague enough to be explained away. He's too smart to be explicit." Sarah picked up the knife, testing its weight. "But not smart enough to know I've changed." Something in her voice made me look at her. Really look at her. This wasn't the sister who'd cried on my couch 6 months ago. This wasn't even the sister who'd called me from a gas station hours earlier. This was someone who'd been pushed past fear into something else entirely. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" She moved to the bedroom, still carrying the knife. I followed, my heart hammering. The twins were still in the hallway, still sleeping, still innocent of whatever was happening in this apartment that stank of violence. The bedroom was worse than the living room. The mattress was slashed, stuffing spilling out like white blood. The closet doors hung off their hinges. And on the wall, written in what looked horribly like blood, "Till death do you us part." "He's lost it," I breathed. "Completely lost it." "No," Sarah said calmly. "He's escalating. Just like the counselor at the shelter said he would. First the emotional abuse, then physical, then the threats. Then." She didn't finish, but she didn't have to. We both knew what came after then. "That's why we're leaving," I said firmly. "Right now. We'll go to the police, get a restraining order." Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. "I have a restraining order. See how well it's protecting me? A piece of paper versus a man with nothing left to lose." She opened the destroyed closet and started pulling at the back wall. To my amazement, a panel came loose, revealing a hidden space. "I've been preparing," she said, pulling out a small safe. "Ever since I realized what he was. What he'd do when I left." She opened the safe with practiced fingers. Inside were documents, cash, and something that made my blood run cold. A handgun. Sarah, no. He's going to come for them, Jacob. For the twins. He said so in the divorce proceedings. If he couldn't have the perfect family, no one could. The judge didn't take it seriously. Called it heated words in a difficult time. But I knew. I've always known. So we run. We go somewhere he can't find you. Where? She turned to me, and I saw tears cutting through her determined expression. Where can we go that he won't follow? He has money, connections, time. And now he knows our parents won't protect us. We're alone, Jacob. Alone in a storm with a man who's decided that if he can't own us, he'll destroy us. A sound from the living room made us both freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Sarah raised the gun with hands that didn't shake. I pushed past her, peering around the doorframe. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. Tall, broad-shouldered. Familiar. Marcus. Hello, Sarah, he said, his voice carrying that same casual charm that had fooled everyone, including me. I heard you were looking for shelter. Thought I'd check our old place, just in case you were feeling nostalgic. You're supposed to be in California? I said, stepping into view. Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Conference was canceled. Storm, you know. Funny how things work out. His gaze shifted past me. Where are my daughters? They're not your daughters anymore, Sarah said, emerging from the bedroom. The gun was hidden behind her back, but her voice was steel. The court made that clear. The court, Marcus sneered. The court believed your lies, your exaggerations. One little push, and suddenly I'm a monster. 17 little pushes, Sarah corrected. All documented, plus the broken wrist, the concussion, and various other accidents you explained away. Marcus's face darkened. You always were too sensitive, too dramatic. Just like your mother said, unable to handle the pressures of marriage. My mother was wrong about a lot of things, Sarah said. But she was right about one thing. Choices have consequences. That's when I heard it. A thin wail from the hallway. One of the twins waking up. Marcus's head snapped toward the sound, and I saw something inhuman flash across his face. My daughters, he said, moving toward the door. No, Sarah said, stepping into his path. You can't keep them from me. Whatever lies you told the judge, they're still my blood. Your blood, maybe, but not your possessions. Not your victims. Marcus laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Victims? They're babies, Sarah. What could I possibly? What could you possibly do? Sarah's voice was rising. How about what you did to me? Starting with the small things, the criticism, the isolation, the constant reminders that I wasn't good enough. Then graduating to bigger things. The pushes, the slaps, the hands around my throat while you explained how this was all my fault. You're being dramatic again. Am I? Should I show Jacob the scars? The ones the court photographer documented? Or maybe we should talk about your plans for the girls. How you'd raise them right. How you'd make sure they didn't turn out weak like their mother. Another wail from the hallway, joined by its twin. Both babies were awake now, crying for comfort in a world gone mad. Marcus took another step forward. Those are my daughters crying. A father should comfort his children. A father should, Sarah agreed. But you're not a father. You're just a man who contributed DNA. Move, Marcus commanded, his charm finally falling away completely. This was the real him, the one Sarah had lived with, feared, finally escaped. No, he grabbed her arm, the same arm I'd seen bruised so many times. But this time Sarah was ready. She twisted, using his momentum against him, and suddenly the gun was visible, pressed against his chest. Marcus froze. You wouldn't I? Sarah's voice was calm, almost conversational. You took everything from me. My confidence, my family, my sense of safety. You made me afraid to exist in my own skin. But you made one mistake, Marcus. You taught me that violence solves problems. And right now, you're a problem. Sarah, I said softly, don't. He's not worth it. No, she agreed. He's not. But they are. She nodded toward the hallway, where the twins' cries were getting more frantic. And if I let him walk out of here, how long before he comes back? How long before he finds us again? How long before he decides that if he can't have them, no one can? Marcus's eyes darted between Sarah and me, calculating. I could see him weighing his options, looking for an angle, a weakness to exploit. You kill me, you go to prison, he said. Then what happens to them? Self-defense, Sarah replied. You broke into my apartment. You have a history of violence. You left threatening messages. Any jury would what? Believe the hysterical ex-wife who murdered her successful doctor husband? I don't think so. The gun wavered for the first time. Marcus saw it too, and his smile returned. That's the thing about you, Sarah. Always so concerned with what others think. What will people say? What will the court decide? What will Mommy and Daddy think? He leaned in closer despite the gun. Well, we both know what they think. They threw you out like trash. Because that's what you are to them now. Damaged goods. A failed investment. Stop, I said. But Marcus was on a roll. And Jacob here playing the hero. You think he wants this? Wants you and 2 screaming infants cramping his bachelor lifestyle? He's here out of obligation, nothing more. Because that's what you are now, Sarah, an obligation. A burden. A problem to be managed. Sarah's hand was shaking now. The twins were screaming. The storm outside was reaching its crescendo, wind howling like a living thing. And Marcus kept talking, each word a scalpel designed to cut. You know what the saddest part is? You could have had everything. The house, the status, the family. All you had to do was shut up and play your role. But no, you had to be difficult. You had to fight back. And look where it got you. Alone in a storm with nowhere to go. She's not alone, I said, stepping beside Sarah. And you're wrong about everything else, too. Marcus's gaze shifted to me, dismissive. The accountant speaks. Tell me, Jacob, how's that working out for you? Still single? Still living for those spreadsheets? At least I tried to build something real. Real. I laughed, the sound surprising all of us. You want to talk about real? Real is Sarah surviving what you put her through. Real is her protecting those babies even when it cost her everything. Real is standing here right now, facing down the monster who tried to break her. That's real, Marcus. You're just a small man who got off on hurting someone who loved you. His face contorted with rage. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know enough, I interrupted. I know Sarah's worth a dozen of you. I know those babies are lucky to have her and unlucky to share your DNA. And I know you're going to turn around and leave, right now, before this gets worse. Or what? She'll shoot me? Go ahead, Sarah. Show your brother who you really are. Show him the violence you're capable of. That's when I realized his game. He wanted her to shoot. Wanted her to cross that line. To become what he'd always accused her of being: dramatic, unstable, dangerous. Even now, facing a gun, he was trying to control the narrative. Sarah, I said quietly, put the gun down. Listen to your brother, Marcus urged. For once in your life, make the smart choice. Sarah looked at me, tears streaming down her face. He'll never stop, Jacob. Never. Then we'll deal with that. Together. But not like this. Not his way. For a long moment, everything hung in balance. The storm, the screaming babies, the gun, the future. All of it teetering on the edge of a decision that couldn't be undone. Then Sarah lowered the gun. Marcus's triumph was immediate and ugly. "That's my girl. Always so weak when it matters." He never finished the sentence. Sarah's fist connected with his nose in a crunch of cartilage and blood. Marcus staggered back, hands flying to his face, blood streaming between his fingers. "That's for everything," Sarah said calmly. "And this is your only warning. Come near me or my daughters again, and I won't hesitate. I won't shake. I won't listen to my better angels. I'll end you, and I'll sleep soundly afterward. Understood?" Marcus glared at us over his bloodied hands, but something in Sarah's eyes must have convinced him. He backed toward the door, leaving bloody handprints on the frame. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Sarah said simply. "It is." He left, and we stood there in the ruins of Sarah's old life, listening to his footsteps retreat down the hall. Only when we heard the stairwell door slam did Sarah collapse, the gun falling from nerveless fingers. "I almost," she gasped. "I wanted to, but you didn't," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You didn't." The twins' cries had reached a fever pitch. We collected ourselves, secured the gun in the safe, and went to comfort them. Two tiny humans who had no idea how close they'd come to losing their mother, one way or another. "We can't stay here," Sarah said, expertly soothing Emma while I awkwardly bounced Ella. "He knows we were here. He'll come back, or send someone, or—" "We're going to my place," I said firmly. "Tonight. Then tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. Police report, new restraining order, maybe leaving the state. Whatever it takes to keep you safe." "Jacob, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling. We're family, Sarah. Real family. The kind that shows up in storms." She cried then, really cried, while the babies settled back into sleep. We gathered what few things from the apartment seemed salvageable. Photo albums, some jewelry, documents the storm hadn't destroyed. Evidence of a life that was over but had led to something new. The drive back to Denver was surreal. The storm had passed while we were in the apartment, leaving behind a world washed clean. Stars peeked through breaking clouds. The highway was littered with debris but passable. And in my back seat, my sister and her daughters began their new life as refugees from the war zone of a bad marriage and worse family. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted as the city lights came into view. "Of Marcus. Of everything. Starting over. Being a single mom. Facing mom and dad eventually. But mostly," she paused, choosing her words, "mostly I'm scared of who I almost became in that apartment. I wanted to hurt him, Jacob, really hurt him, make him feel what he'd made me feel. But you didn't. Only because you were there. If I'd been alone." "You weren't alone," I said. "And you won't be. That's the difference between us and the mom, dad, Marcus. We understand that family isn't about blood or vows or appearance. It's about showing up, being present, choosing each other even when it's hard. Even when it means harboring your disgraced sister and her bastard twins." The bitter humor in her voice broke my heart. "Especially then. Although for the record, they're not bastards. They're Emma and Ella Reed, and they're going to grow up knowing they're loved, wanted, and worth protecting. That's more than we got." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "How did you turn out so decent? Same parents, same pressure, same expectations. But you're different." I thought about it as I navigated the familiar streets toward home. "Remember Grandma Ellen? Mom's mom. Barely. She died when I was little. I was 8, but I remember her pulling me aside at Christmas one year. Mom had been going on about my grades, my performance, my potential. And Grandma Ellen sat me down and said, "Your mother means well, but she's forgotten something important. Love isn't a transaction. It's a gift. You give it freely or not at all." And you remembered that? I wrote it down, kept it in my wallet all through school. Whenever Mom and Dad's conditional love got too heavy, I'd read it and remember there was another way. We pulled into my building's garage, and I could see Sarah processing the reality of her new situation. No suburban house, no perfectly manicured lawn, just a downtown apartment with a doorman who'd seen stranger things than a single mom and her twins seeking shelter. "It's not much," I started to apologize, but Sarah cut me off. "It's everything," she said fiercely. "It's safe. It's away from them. It's a chance to breathe. Do you understand what a gift that is?" We made multiple trips to bring everything up. My two-bedroom apartment suddenly felt both too small and exactly right. The twins, miraculously, stayed asleep through the transfer, as if they knew they were finally somewhere secure. "Guest room's yours," I said, showing Sarah the space I'd used as an office. "We'll get cribs tomorrow, proper baby stuff. Tonight. Tonight, we're alive and together and away from anyone who wishes us harm," Sarah finished. "That's enough. More than enough." I ordered Chinese food from the place down the street that delivered until 2 a.m. We ate lo mein straight from the containers, sitting on my living room floor, while the twins slept in their car seats. Outside, the city went about its business, oblivious to the small revolution taking place in apartment 1247. "What are you going to tell work?" Sarah asked. "The truth. Family emergency. If they have a problem with it, I'll find another job." Turns out, when your sister shows you what real courage looks like, spreadsheets seem less important. And Mom and Dad? I thought about the messages surely waiting on my phone, the demands for explanation, the threats of consequences, the emotional manipulation disguised as concern. Nothing, I decided. They made their choice, threw you out in a storm because divorce offended their sensibilities. They don't get updates on how that worked out. They'll find out eventually. This city isn't that big. Let them. What are they going to do? Disown me too? Fine. I'll have better company. Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. "Remember when we were kids? That game we used to play." "Which one?" "Shipwreck. Where we'd pretend the couch was a life raft and everywhere else was shark-infested water." I laughed. "You always made me be the shark." "Well, now we're both on the raft, and the sharks are real. But at least," she gestured around my apartment at the sleeping babies, at the Chinese food containers. "At least we're together." Emma stirred, making the small sounds that preceded full waking. Sarah moved to tend to her with the automatic response of motherhood. Watching her gentle competence, I marveled at the strength hidden in my supposedly weak sister. "Sarah," I said suddenly, "you were amazing tonight, in that apartment facing him down. You were terrified," she finished, "but also done. Done being afraid. Done letting him control the narrative. Done pretending that keeping the peace was worth more than keeping my sanity. What do you think changed?" She considered while adjusting Emma's blanket. "The girls. When I was just protecting myself, I could rationalize staying, enduring, hoping things would improve. But when I realized he'd do to them what he did to me, the criticism, the control, the violence disguised as discipline, I couldn't. No amount of family pressure or social embarrassment was worth letting them grow up like that. Mom and Dad won't see it that way. Mom and Dad are so invested in appearances they'd rather have a dead daughter than a divorced one. They literally proved that tonight. The bitterness was back, but underneath it, something stronger. But you know what?" Their approval was killing me slowly anyway. At least this way I get to live. Ella woke next, and soon both twins were demanding bottles. I watched Sarah manage both babies with practiced ease, cooing and soothing even as exhaustion painted dark circles under her eyes. "You should sleep," I suggested. "I can take a shift. You don't know anything about babies. I can learn. How hard can it be?" Famous last words. 2 hours later, covered in spit-up and holding a screaming Ella while Emma performed her own symphony of displeasure, I had new respect for single parents everywhere. Sarah appeared in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep, and despite everything, she laughed. "Give her here," she said, taking Ella with practiced ease. "You're holding her like a football. She seemed to like it earlier. That was before you fed her. Now she needs to be upright, like this." She demonstrated, and like magic, Ella's cries diminished to hiccups. "You'll learn. We all do. Sarah, I don't know how to do this. Be an uncle, a real one, not just the guy who sends birthday cards." "You already are," she said simply. "You showed up. In a storm. Without question. That's more than—" She didn't finish, but I heard the words anyway. "More than our parents did. More than Marcus ever would. More than anyone else in her life had managed." "It's going to be hard," I warned. "People will talk. Mom and Dad will make things difficult. Marcus might." "Let them," Sarah interrupted. "I've already survived the worst they could do. Survived it and came out the other side with 2 beautiful daughters and a brother who actually knows what family means. That's not a loss. That's a victory." The twins settled back to sleep, and we sat in my living room as dawn approached, 2 siblings who'd found their way back to each other through the wreckage of family expectations. Outside, the city began to wake, unaware that in one small apartment, a new kind of family was being born. My phone, which I'd silenced hours ago, showed 17 missed calls. 12 from my mother, 5 from my father, all demanding explanation, requiring compliance, insisting on the maintenance of their carefully constructed reality. I deleted them all without listening. "What now?" Sarah asked, voicing the question that hung between us. "Now we build something new," I said. "Something based on actual love, not performed affection. Something that values safety over reputation, happiness over appearances. Something real. The twins deserve that. We all deserve that. It just took a storm to show us." Sarah leaned against my shoulder, exhausted but finally at peace. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming, for standing up to him, for everything." "Thank you," I replied, "for showing me what courage actually looks like." We sat there as the sun rose over Denver, painting the sky in shades of hope. Somewhere across the city, our parents were probably having breakfast, maintaining their routines, secure in their righteousness. Marcus was nursing his broken nose and planning his next move. The world was spinning on, unchanged by our small drama. But in apartment 1247, everything had changed. A family based on blood had shattered, but something stronger had taken its place. A family based on choice, on showing up, on the radical act of putting love above all else. The twins slept on, unaware that they'd been saved from more than just a storm. They'd been saved from growing up believing that love had to be earned, that perfection was the price of belonging, that appearance mattered more than truth. They'd grow up with a mother who'd faced down her demons and won, an uncle who'd learned that spreadsheets meant nothing compared to family, a life perhaps less privileged but infinitely more honest than the one they'd lost. It wouldn't be easy. There would be legal battles, financial struggles, long nights, and difficult conversations. There would be moments when the weight of our parents' disapproval felt crushing, when Marcus's threats felt too real, when the task of building a new life felt impossible. But there would also be first smiles and first steps. Birthday parties where everyone actually wanted to be there. Bedtime stories without hidden agendas. Love given freely without conditions or cost. The storm had passed, leaving destruction in its wake. But sometimes, I realized, destruction is just another word for opportunity. The chance to rebuild, stronger and truer than before. "We're going to be okay," Sarah said, as if reading my thoughts. "Yeah." I agreed, meaning it. "We really are." My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. This time, I didn't delete it immediately. I opened it, curious what fresh manipulation she'd attempt. "Jacob, your father and I have discussed the situation. If Sarah is willing to apologize and return to counseling with Marcus, we might consider allowing supervised visits with the twins. Family reputation can be repaired, but it requires effort from everyone. Don't let emotion cloud your judgment. Make the smart choice." I showed it to Sarah, who read it with the detached interest of someone observing a different species. "Supervised visits," she said wonderingly. "With my own daughters, because I had the audacity to leave a man who hurt me. The smart choice," I added. "As if there's anything smart about sending you back to an abuser." Sarah took my phone and, with deliberate precision, typed a reply. The smart choice was leaving. The brave choice was staying gone. The right choice was protecting my daughters. And the best choice was having a brother who understands that family means showing up in storms, not causing them. Don't contact us again until you're ready to apologize for choosing reputation over your daughter's safety. She hit send before I could stop her. "Sarah, no more," she said firmly. "No more placating. No more pretending they might change. No more hoping for approval from people who'd rather see me dead than divorced. They made their choice. Now we make ours." My phone immediately began ringing. "Mom." I declined the call and turned the phone off entirely. "You know this means war," I warned. "They'll use every tool they have. Money, connections, guilt. Let them. I've already lost everything I was supposed to care about. House, husband, family approval. And you know what? I'm freer than I've ever been. Poor, scared, starting from scratch, but free." The twins began stirring again, the morning sun warming their faces. Soon they'd wake properly, needing food and comfort and all the endless care that babies require. But for now, in this moment between night and day, between old life and new, there was peace. "I should go shopping," I said. "Diapers, formula, clothes. Maybe some actual furniture for the guest room. What else do babies need?" "Everything," Sarah laughed. "But start with the basics. We'll figure out the rest as we go." "Should I get 2 of everything?" "Yes, but Jacob." She touched my arm, making sure I was listening. "The most important thing you're giving them isn't stuff. It's stability, love, the knowledge that someone will always show up for them, no matter what storm is raging." I thought about our parents, about their conditional love and carefully maintained distances, about Marcus and his need to control, about all the ways families could fail each other. "They'll have that," I promised. "We all will." I stood to get ready, already mentally calculating costs and logistics. My neat bachelor life was about to become very messy, very loud, and very complicated. My savings would take a hit. My career might suffer from the divided attention. My parents would make good on their threats of disinheritance. And none of it mattered, because in the guest room, my sister was singing softly to her daughters, her voice carrying a hope I hadn't heard in years, because 2 innocent babies would grow up knowing they were worth protecting. Because sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. The storm had passed. The sun was shining. And in apartment 1247, 3 refugees from a war they didn't start were beginning to build something new. Something precious. Something worth any price. A real family. I made a mental note to change my emergency contact information at work. From Richard and Patricia Reed to Sarah Reed. From the people who'd raised me to the person who'd shown me what raising really meant. It was a small thing, administrative really, but it felt like drawing a line in the sand. Choosing sides in a battle that shouldn't have existed but did. I chose Sarah. I chose the twins. I chose love without conditions. And for the first time in my 36 years, I felt like I'd finally made the smart choice. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of adjustment. My apartment transformed from a bachelor pad into something resembling a baby supply store explosion. Cribs squeezed into the guest room. A changing table replaced my desk. The sophisticated coffee maker gave way to bottle warmers and formula mixers. Sarah insisted on paying for everything from her savings, what little Marcus hadn't managed to control. I insisted on covering it myself. We compromised by her buying the daily supplies while I handled the furniture and larger items. It was the kind of negotiation our parents never would have understood. Both parties trying to give more rather than take. On the third day, as I was attempting to assemble a crib while Emma gnawed on my shirt collar, Sarah's phone rang. She looked at the number and paled. "It's David Harrison," she said. "Marcus's lawyer. Don't answer." But she'd already accepted the call, putting it on speaker. "Hello, David." "Sarah." The voice was smooth, professional, designed to intimidate without seeming to. "I'm calling on behalf of my client regarding the custody arrangement." "There is no arrangement. Marcus has no custody." The court was very clear. Circumstances change. My client has concerns about the children's current living situation. Staying with a single man. No proper accommodations. Financial instability. "I'm living with my brother," Sarah interrupted. "In a safe apartment with everything my daughters need." "Your brother who has no experience with children, who works long hours, who can't provide the stable two-parent home my client offers. Your client who abused me, who threatened us." "Who?" "Alleged abuse," David corrected smoothly. "And my client has completed anger management counseling. He's prepared to offer a stable home environment, complete with a full-time nanny and the best schools. Compare that to..." A delicate pause. "Whatever situation you're currently in." I took the phone from Sarah's trembling hand. "Mr. Harrison? This is Jacob Reed. I'm recording this call, by the way. Are you seriously suggesting that children be placed with a man who has a documented history of domestic violence?" "Mr. Reed, I wasn't aware you were part of this discussion. I became part of it when my sister showed up at a gas station in a storm because her parents threw her out for leaving your client. So yes, I'm part of it. And if your client wants to pursue custody, he'll have to explain to a judge why he violated his restraining order 3 nights ago." Silence. Then, "I'm not aware of any violation." "Really?" "Because we have security footage from the apartment complex showing him entering the building. Sarah's neighbor saw him leaving with blood on his face. Self-defense when he tried to attack her again. And we have the threatening note he left. So please pursue custody. I'm sure the judge will be fascinated." More silence. I could practically hear David recalculating. "My client simply wants what's best for his daughters," he said finally. "Then he'll leave them with their mother and disappear from their lives. That's what's best. Make it happen, counselor." I hung up and handed the phone back to Sarah, who was staring at me with something like awe. "Security footage? Probably. Most buildings have cameras now. We'll check. But he doesn't know we haven't already pulled it." "You lied to a lawyer." "I strategically presented potential facts. Different thing entirely." I went back to the crib assembly. He's fishing, trying to scare you into something. We don't scare anymore. Sarah sank onto the couch, Ella in her arms. What if he's right, though? What if a judge looks at this situation and decides? Decides what? That a loving mother and supportive uncle are better than an abusive father? That family who shows up is better than family who throws you out? Sarah, you're not alone in this. We'll get you a better lawyer. Document everything. Build a case so airtight that Marcus's money can't buy his way around it. With what money? I thought about my savings, my 401k, my equity in the company, numbers on a spreadsheet that had seemed so important last week. With whatever it takes, I said. Some things matter more than compound interest. That afternoon, while Sarah napped with the twins, I made some calls. First to a family lawyer recommended by a colleague who'd been through a brutal divorce. Then to my HR department to adjust my schedule, working from home 3 days a week to help with the babies. Finally to a security company about cameras for the apartment. Each call felt like a step away from the life I'd built and toward something uncertain but necessary. The Jacob Reed who'd sat in that sterile office reviewing quarterlies would have been horrified. But that version of me hadn't yet learned what was worth protecting. You're remodeling your whole life for us? Sarah said that evening, watching me try to figure out how to properly hold a bottle. Your job, your apartment, your savings. My priorities, I corrected. I'm remodeling my priorities. Turns out they needed updating anyway. Mom and Dad would say you're throwing your life away. Mom and Dad threw their daughter away. I don't think their opinion carries much weight anymore. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I dream about them sometimes. Standing in the doorway, watching Marcus destroy our things. Not lifting a finger to help. Just disapproving. Like I was failing them by being abused. They failed you by valuing their image over your safety. I know that, logically, but emotionally, she shrugged. 30 years of conditioning doesn't just disappear. No, I agreed, but it fades. Every day you choose differently, it fades a little more. The twins were nearly a month old when the inevitable happened. I was returning from a grocery run, arms full of diapers and formula, when I saw a familiar car in the visitors' parking. My father's BMW, pristine and judgmental, exactly where I didn't want it to be. I found them in the lobby. My parents, dressed as if attending a business meeting rather than attempting a reconciliation. Sarah stood by the elevators, both twins in their stroller, looking cornered. Completely unreasonable, my mother was saying. We've given you time to cool down. Now it's time to discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her white knuckles on the stroller handle. You made your position clear when you put our belongings on the lawn. You were emotional. We all were. But surely you can see. What I see, I interrupted, setting down the groceries, are two people who chose reputation over their daughter's safety, who literally locked her out in a dangerous storm because divorce offended their sensibilities. So no, we can't see whatever justification you're about to offer. My father turned to me, his expression a mix of disappointment and disdain. Jacob, I should have known you'd enable this behavior. Enable? I'm enabling my sister to live safely with her children. If that disappoints you, I'll add it to the list. Don't be glib, my mother snapped. This is serious. Sarah's making decisions that will affect these children's entire futures. Yes, Sarah agreed. I'm deciding they should grow up without being abused. Revolutionary concept, I know. Marcus made mistakes, my father conceded, as if domestic violence was equivalent to forgetting an anniversary. But he's seeking help. He wants to reconcile. Of course he does, I said. He wants his possessions back. Too bad they're people, not property. My mother's face flushed. How dare you? How dare you? I countered. How dare you come here after what you did? How dare you advocate for a man who hurt your daughter? How dare you stand there acting like the injured parties when Sarah's the one who had to rebuild her life from nothing? We're trying to help, my father insisted. No, you're trying to restore your image. Big difference. The twins began fussing, picking up on the tension. Sarah moved to soothe them, but my mother reached for the stroller. Don't, Sarah said sharply. You lost the right to play grandmother when you chose Marcus over us. My mother recoiled as if slapped. Sarah, please. They're our grandchildren. They're my daughters, and I'll protect them from anyone who thinks appearance matters more than their well-being, including you. The standoff stretched, tense and painful. Other residents passed through the lobby, carefully avoiding eye contact. Even the doorman found something fascinating to study on his computer screen. Finally, my father spoke. If you continue down this path, there will be consequences. More consequences than being thrown out in a storm? Sarah asked. More than being told I'm a disappointment for not staying with an abuser? What else can you take from me? Your inheritance, for one, my mother said coldly. Both of you, continue this defiance, and you'll be written out entirely. I laughed, the sound echoing off the marble walls. Our inheritance? You mean the money you've held over our heads our entire lives? The golden leash you've used to keep us in line? Take it. We don't want it. You don't mean that, my father said, but uncertainty colored his voice. I absolutely do. What good is money that comes with conditions? What value is inheritance that requires us to sacrifice Sarah's safety? Keep it. Choke on it. Build a monument to your reputation with it. But don't think it gives you power over us anymore. Sarah straightened, drawing strength from my words. Jacob's right. You can keep your money, your approval, your conditional love. We'll take freedom instead. My parents exchanged glances, their ultimate weapon neutralized. Without the threat of disinheritance, what leverage did they have? You'll regret this, my mother warned. When reality sets in, when the bills pile up, when you realize what you've thrown away. What we've thrown away, Sarah interrupted, is the delusion that your love was worth earning. That's not a loss. That's liberation. She maneuvered the stroller around them, heading for the elevators. I gathered the groceries and followed, leaving our parents standing in the lobby like relics from another age. The elevator ride was silent until the doors closed. Then Sarah sagged against the wall, tears flowing freely. You okay? I asked. I said no to them. Really said no. Not temporarily, not conditionally. Just no. How does it feel? She considered, wiping her eyes. Terrifying and free, like jumping off a cliff and discovering you can fly. They might come back. Let them. Each time will be easier. Each no will be stronger. She looked at the twins who'd settled back to sleep. They deserve better than what we got. They deserve unconditional love. They have it, I assured her. From you. From me. From anyone worth having in their lives. Back in the apartment, we fed the twins and settled into what was becoming our evening routine. Sarah on one end of the couch, me on the other, each holding a baby, talking about everything and nothing. Do you think they were always like this? Sarah asked. Mom and Dad? Or did they become this way? I think they chose it, I said after considering. Chose safety over authenticity. Chose image over intimacy. And each choice made the next one easier until they couldn't imagine any other way to be. Are we choosing differently? Or just reacting to them? Both, maybe, but look at the results. They're alone in their perfect house with their perfect reputation. We're here, imperfect and struggling, but together. Which life would you rather have? Ella made a sound that could generously be interpreted as agreement. We laughed, the sound filling the apartment with warmth our childhood home had never known. You know what's funny? Sarah said. I spent so long trying to build the life they wanted for me. The right husband, the right house, the right image. And it nearly killed me. Literally. But losing it all? That saved me. Losing what wasn't real, I corrected, to find what is. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother, this one longer, more manipulative. I deleted it without reading and made a mental note to block their numbers entirely. Some bridges, once burned, didn't need rebuilding. The twins would grow up without grandparents on the Reed side, but they'd grow up with truth, with safety, with love that didn't demand perfection as payment. It wasn't the family story our parents had written, but it was the one we were choosing to tell. And that made all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're like me, someone who spent years trying to earn love that was never truly offered, you know these aren't just stories. They're mirrors of our deepest wounds and greatest triumphs. Subscribe if these stories resonate with your journey. Hit that notification bell. Think of it as our regular meetup, where we share truths that others might not understand. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? What would you have done in my shoes? Your words matter to me, and they matter to everyone here who's walked this lonely path. Tomorrow, I'll be back with another story. Until then, remember, family isn't always blood, and sometimes the greatest gift is discovering who you truly are. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.